And with this, I start, and you know how I start. It's always the same, the same start. But I'm not gonna say it out loud anymore. What is there, because and you know that we are recording. You have seen it. I said it with the mic, but if you're so little people, so few people, that doesn't matter. And with the camera, and um, that's it with regard to that. For the program, if this works, yes. I don't have a lot to say as well. It's the sixth and last module, and we have Georg with us. That's great because he will present it, what is on today. And I just wanted to highlight what is planned after in September. I know that Wolfgang and Joe, you have already registered. That's great. Um, for the field day, where we will put into practice a bit what we have been discussing in the past 5 modules, and not necessarily on the 6th module, because the field day will be on floods. Um, but if Niraj or Theo, if you happen to be in Switzerland in September, don't hesitate to register. Actually, you would be most welcome as well. And again, the second part of the learning journey will focus on risk assessment and cost-benefit analysis. And we have planned 3 webinars for the beginning of 2024. The content is not yet discussed, of course, and we will take into consideration your inputs in the evaluations there. And with this, that is my share of now, and I would like to hand over to Georg. Georg, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Tony. Hi to everybody. The main focus of the presentation or the learning journey from today is on the landslides, the hazard analysis of landslides, but we wanted to include also what we missed last time, which is the definition of critical sites. It's nice to have a hazard map, but what to do with a hazard map? Why do we elaborate the hazard map? It's the basic element to define the houses, the objects which are critical, where we have to take protection measures or mitigation measures. And then for sure we'll have a time slot for questions, Q&A, where also Andrea is joining and open for questions and responses. Okay, I start. We already know for floods the working steps, the definition of the area where we work as the first step, the working scale as the second step, the data acquisition, looking for satellite images, orthophotos, digital terrain models, precipitation data, etc. Then to include the local knowledge as a third point, from people, elderly people living in the area for the registering of events, earlier events. We will make a, a round trip in our project area to look for morphological witnesses, and at least we're elaborating the hazard map. And as I mentioned before, on the right side of the slide, we see this hazard map that we know already. And as I mentioned,
Georg,
yeah.
am I the only one who does not see a slide? Did you share your screen?
I'm sharing. Okay.
To the others, do you see it?
Nope.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when I was sharing mine, you know, it was on. You were that was automatically unsharing yours. Sorry.
We see it now.
Yeah, now it's good.
Okay. So I just repeated the working steps we already know from earlier learning journeys. And on the right side of the picture, the hazard map, we also know the 3 colors, yellow, blue, and red. But what can we do in our project with this product? Not just to complete the the outcomes and the outputs, but to have it as a basic element for the definition of critical sites. And in projects, normally this protection targets for different object types are not set, are not made. That means, what is the maximum permissible hazard level for different object types, as a house, a church, a street, a water tank, cornfields. So these are all different object types, and for sure not each of these object type has the same protection target. For example, normally it's the case that a health post, a hospital, has a lower permission level to be affected by floods or also by landslides. And when we have for orientation this 9-field diagram, which we know already, the mix of frequency and intensity of hazardous processes. Maybe in the project involved, the actors are sitting together and defining this target level, or this maximum permissible hazard level for these object types. For example, the project actor says, well, for health posts, we don't accept any kind of hazard levels. So just the 0 level, not even the level 1, during very extremely events and the intensity is very low, not even the level 1 will be accepted for hospitals. That can be a decision. Or the project actor says, well, we know we don't have the money to protect all the whole area of the project. We have to accept a certain level of risk. For example, for fields of corn, which is maybe not so critical, we accept a level 7. That means we accept high intensities, but just for extreme events with a return period of 100 years. So for that area, for your corn field, you can define as the level 7 of the maximum of the protection target. There aren't any recommendations where to set this protection target. It has to be defined by the project, and not just from from one person, from the technical DRR person. It has to be defined by all the relevant actors. So these are meetings, can be several meetings to define this protection target. And what I prepared for as an exercise, a selection of different types, object types. That means a wooden or adobe house, a school with concrete walls, more or less a stable school building which resists certain kind of hazards. A church, a water tank, a health post, a main road, a cornfield, administration building. So just for this selection of object types, I would take the opportunity to ask you for an exercise. We are dividing in. We are now how many person, Tony?
I would say 7 without you and without Nora, who would probably not participate in the groups. And I'm not sure if Andrea wants to participate. Do you want to participate?
Sure.
Okay, good. Then we are 7, and then I would say we just make 2 groups.
Yeah.
And for Nora, please make the groups in a way that we would have in each group not more than 2 from Switzerland and and then at least 2, if possible, from or 1 or 2 from non-Switzerland, because I think it's good if we can mix. Is that okay, Nora? Okay. And I put the slide. I put it in the chat, so you can you have access to it. It's a Google slide, and then we can all see what happens.
Okay, then we'll jump from one group to the other. I give you maybe another example for the wooden houses. The group 1 defining as a protection target level 6. That means we accept frequent events with a return period of 10 years up to medium intensity. That means 50 centimeters up to 2 meters flow height. We accept that, but higher intensities we will not accept. So the number you will fill out in this first cell here will be the 6. Is the exercise clear, or do you have questions regarding the exercise?
That's clear. However, when I opened the Google Sheets exercise, there is just one slide. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
We work on the same? Okay.
Yeah, you can work on the same.
You're either group 1 or group 2, but that's Nora then who decides which group you are, you know. And
yeah,
then,
but we're just working on that same one.
Yeah, we will see what the other group is doing.
Okay,
you know.
okay, good.
That's also fun. I hope it's not always the same protection target then.
Very curious to see your results, and then afterwards, when we discuss the results, we'll have an example from Honduras where I would like to share with you as well. We have 15 minutes to complete this exercise, and Nora, you will split in 2 groups now. Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, welcome back to everyone. Very curious to see your results. In the second group, I couldn't access the sheet. Maybe someone could share it. Maybe the group 1. Niraj, can you share your screen and explain your results from the group 1?
Please, Georg, why don't you go on the chat and click on the link?
I don't have any. Okay, now it opened. Yeah. Now it works. Just a second. Can you still see my screen?
We don't need to.
No.
But we don't, we don't see your screen now. Yes.
But if everybody could access the Google slide, then everybody can see it on its own screen. So shouldn't be the problem.
Okay, Niraj, could you present the results from group 1?
Okay. I mean, first of all, the way we understood, these protection measures are that whatever risk level we put there is something acceptable to us, or we are foreseeing those risks, and any risk beyond that is to be protected by some sort of, structural or non-structural measures. That is how we interpreted it. And based on that, for wooden house and adobe house, since adobe house means the mud house, I mean, flooding beyond 2 meters is that will, completely collapse the house. So, I mean, we sort of limit ourselves to that intensity level. And if that is once, or less than 30 years, that is a sort of acceptable limit. That is why we put 5. For standard schools, I mean, concrete walls, though that the schools are of concrete wall or the very, strong sort of nature, but schools are something with children. So, we think like their protection is very important. So the risk level we accept is 4. That means once in a 100 years with intensity 0.5 to 0.2. Same with the church. There was some sort of confusion. I mean, this happened to be tricky to us how we see to what value we put to the church or the temples or the mosque. I mean, that depends upon how religious we are. So I mean, we simply take church and school with the same standards. Then water tank, I mean, this happened to be tricky to us. First we put 1, that means intensity less than 0.5 and the event 100 years. But then we also discussed that normally water tanks are elevated, they are built on columns or the pillars. So if they are high above the ground, I mean, we can probably go to the risk level 6, but this is something for the discussion. The basic thing we agreed is that the water tanks should not be destroyed and the water should not be contaminated. So it depends, if your water tanks is on the surface and even the half a meter depth of flood contaminate it, then we have to take a different level of risk. And if it is elevated and even the more than 2 meter of water depth doesn't sort of contaminate it, but there is a risk of destroying the columns and or the water tank, then the scenario would be different. So how we take it, it depends on that. So that is why we have 1 and within a bracket 6. This is something for discussion. Administration building, we thought like these are very important in not only in terms of keeping the government records, but also important in terms of responding to disasters. So they need to be there during the disaster. That is why their risk level, acceptable risk level, should be low. That is why we have 2 there. Health post, I mean, that's the most critical thing. So I mean, 1 is the what we could put. I mean, we at one point in time we were also discussing 0. And main road, I mean, this is also very tricky thing. Since this is the main road, I mean, we put 2 here, because even during the disasters, mobility is to be there. And for the grain field, I mean, we put 7, because once in 100 years, I mean, if more than 2 intensity disasters happen, I mean, that is acceptable, because that is the and that somehow anyway it happens. You cannot implement very sturdy protection measures for the grain fields. That's it from my side.
Okay, thank you very much for these explications. Group 2, are there comments, additional comments or opposition regarding the definition of protection target from Group 1?
Just one thing, with the water tank, we were at the same discussion. We said it depends, as you said, Niraj, exactly the same. It should not be contaminated. And if it's ground level and for at the household level, it would be rather a 1. And if it's more for community level, if it's higher up protected, it can be a higher level. But we were rudely interrupted when we wanted to put a figure there. Where we have a difference is with the administration building, also because I say it also here, because in many contexts, the admin. Well, if you can walk in, then it's good. That's why we put a 4. It's usually a good building, and up to half a meter you can walk. That's good. Doesn't need a higher protection. And we were also just shortly also discussing a bit on the performance of local administration. Sometimes it does not make a difference if it's inundated or not, but that was rather a joke. And with the grain field, there we're quite different, huh? Probably that's a little bit high with us. We just thought, well, if it's more than half a meter, that means the crops are destroyed, and if you have destroyed crops, let's say every 10 years, that's just it is an impact. It is an impact on the society, huh? Especially in those where you have where you rely on that food. But I acknowledge, I totally agree. It's that would be very difficult in many contexts. It's difficult to then have the protection schemes there for that. Huh? That's a bit. I don't know if Theo. I don't see Theo anymore with us, but we were with Andrea and Wolfgang. I don't know if you want to add or if that is okay. I don't see what we did, what protection target we put at the standard school. Now Theo is again with us. I don't know what it is. What is this? Is there a 6?
You put there a 3.
A 3, okay, yeah, a bit more, yeah, because we said it can be used as a shelter in many times, and then it's again good to not have more than a half a meter, because then it gets really dangerous also for the children. That's why probably we have a bit of a lower. But I don't see it because there is somebody is in there, you know, and it's covering the number. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Okay, thanks for your remarks. For the discussion. I just switch to the slides and to have an insight of a meeting we had in Honduras, where we built 5 groups for quite many object types. And it was really interesting to see the differences between groups. So group 1 was a group just with women, and group 5 was mixed, but most of them were men. And the sensibilization were quite different regarding the risk acceptance of the groups. So for houses, individual houses, quite the most every group defined a very low level of acceptance. But it was interesting for the vegetable areas, fruit trees, shrimp farm, field of corn. So the first group had a very low acceptance, and the group 5 it doesn't matter. So it shows that the differences are huge, and it's really important to start this discussion, to calibrate all of the actors in the project to be clear about the protection level. So in that case, on this working group, we just took the mathematical mean value as a setting, as our setting. It is important, this definition, because afterwards, once you have done your hazard map, you have to look for all the objects that are where the hazard is higher than the defined protection level, and all the objects which are higher than the target level are defined as critical site. And just these objects have to be protected with mitigation measures. So this is the idea, this is the concept of this working steps, to avoid that some people say, why do you protect the house and why you don't protect my house? So to avoid these discussions, or to explain it, why you took your decision, this working step is quite important to do. It's our first step to the risk topic that we will discuss next year, where we go quite further, not just to define protection level, but also to define risks, to quantify risks, and to define a cost benefit of mitigation measures. Okay, that was the last part of the last learning journey I wanted to share with you. Do you have any questions before we go ahead to the assessment of landslide hazards?
Maybe if we go back one slide again, but or two slides, just for the map for the final map. The thing I didn't quite get exactly. I wasn't able to join last session, but I watched the recording. If I have now, I take a critical intersection in my stream and do all the calculations there, and I get I know if there is flooding, what is the intensity, and I know also in that intersection I know also spatially maybe it runs more to one side or something. But how do I get this whole map then from different critical points in the stream? How do I get to the area which is flooded? I didn't quite get that step in the last model.
Could you participate during the last learning journey? There, it was the main topic was there. Maybe it's a little bit. I would need several slides to explain it in detail, but just to give you a short answer. Along, well, this stream flows from left to right. During your field trip, you measured different points where you think that it could be critical, and you are measuring the geometry of these cross sections, and you are defining the discharge capacity of each of them and comparing with the discharge for the different scenarios, 10 yearly, 30 yearly, 100 yearly event. So then you can define the critical points where floods can occur. Then for each point, you are looking in terrain, as you know how much water, how much will be the outflow. You have to follow the topography in terrain to look where the water could flow. If you have advanced techniques, you can realize a 2D modeling, but normally in our projects there are no ways to do that. So just go in terrain, look by the topography where the water could flow, and then you are defining your floodable area. You are repeating that for each point, critical point you discovered in along the river. And you have Überlagerung. How do you say that in English?
Overlay, maybe an overlay.
Yeah, overlay of
overlap
from each critical point along the river of floodable areas. You are combining these areas, and then you reach to the hazard map. I think at the moment it's a bit difficult to go more in detail to be on time with the next slides, but look the last learning journey, the slides there, and if not, just we can talk together bilateral, and I can explain it to you if you want.
Okay, then we'll have a look again. Okay, no problem. Thanks.
Okay. Landslide hazards. As I saw during the last two learning journeys, maybe it was a little bit too technical, so I went a step back to make it a little bit more qualitative. But if you are interested in quantitative aspects, we can handle it. We can discuss it as well today. So just to give you an overview of different landslide types, there are the most common landslide type are the shallow landslides, debris flows. Well, these are not debris flow in rivers, but on slopes. But it's also a debris flow on slopes, as we can see in this picture here. I have an example, a short video where you can see a shallow landslide, debris flow landslide along this railway line. On the upper side here is maybe 40-50 meter cube of loose material sliding down. just to explain, this is not that much material, just about 30-40 meter cube, which is not that much. It's a spontaneous process. You cannot run away. It's too fast and it's quite destructive, this process. On the other side, there is also a spontaneous process, which are the deep landslides, which can occur as well very fast. In that case, this is a photo from Cusco, Peru. The depth of this moving soil can be 10, 20, 30 meters. So in our projects, we don't have possibilities to analyze hazards from deep spontaneous landslides. It's too difficult. We would need to have technical instruments as inclinometers, which has a cost of 10, 20, 30,000 franc dollars each. So there's no possibility to analyze this kind of landslide hazard. But it has to be clear that they are not frequent. So be aware they exist, but don't consider it in your hazard map. Normally it won't be possible. There's a third kind of landslide type, which are the permanent continuous landslide. They are moving all the time, and normally with millimeters per year. So just not remarkable, but they exist. Normally they are not destructive. I have here an example from Switzerland, in the eastern part of Switzerland, a photo sequence of during 2 years. Each day a photo has been taken, and you can see how the terrain is moving. There aren't any possibilities for growth of vegetation because of the movement of terrain. Normally, this kind of landslide, as I mentioned before, are not destructive, just over a long period. So normally it is not the process which it's really a problem during a project cycle. Can be considered, but it's not as important as the first landslide type I present you. I would like to explain you these two kinds of landslide types to describe the behavior, to describe the characteristics of these two types, beginning with the permanent continuous landslide. They can be localized often by digital terrain model or satellite images or autophotos taken by a drone. When you have a certain distance from the site, here we have an area in South America where we have two small rivers. It's quite a steep area in the mountains, almost 4,500 meters above sea level. And you have another stream. Just to give you an idea of the size, this is are several buildings this is a farmer living here. This is a forest, and maybe you're able to see the landslide area in that picture. It's where we have some kind of disruption of terrain. For example, along this level here, this line here, you can observe this is a disruptive line, and all the area beyond this line is within the moving terrain. You can also see some undulations, some parallel forms, which are classical for continuous landslides. So we can, with satellite photos, look for silent witnesses, which can help a lot, which is sometimes difficult in terrain to have a big picture about the whole landslide area. The distance between this stream and this one are about 400 meters, maybe. It's quite huge. all this area, all this mass is sliding down with a moving velocity of millimeters, maybe centimeters per year, so quite low. The landslide is quite old. It started here on the upper side of this area. You can see also here this line here showing the starting point of the landslide. The same area taken from another point of view, yes. You can see here on the upper part is the localized farmer, and all this area here is the landslide area, shown in yellow here, and a very active part of the landslide area is here. We have in 2018 a collapse of this part of the landslide, triggering a huge debris flow in the river, and with a loss of many people in the urban area down in the city. In terrain, you can look for silent witnesses for continuous landslides as cracks in the fields. You can see the moving direction of the underground. In forests, maybe you can see also cracks with roots, showing you the activity of these cracks. And in some case, you can also see that the vegetation growing of trees, which has a typical form for continuous landslides. So that are some silent witnesses you could observe. Or if you have advanced techniques, you can also apply a hillshade, a virtual shadow in GIS, to look for landslide areas, continuous landslides. For example, this is a photo taken where I live in the Emmental. The small points are houses. The blue lines are is the river net, and applying this artificial sunlight, it creates a hillshade, and with this hillshade I can see all these areas where terrain is moving. For example, here you have typical signs as a undulated disruptive lines here where we don't have any kind of movement signs. You don't have the landslide in this area. Here you have active process as well here in this area, and here and here. So it's a very good additional working instrument to localize, to detect continuous landslides. Sometimes in terrain you can also see this deformation of terrain. The landslide is moving from left to right in valley direction, and this dam here, for example, is not artificial. It's a natural dam built by the movement of the subsoil. Also, if you have buildings in continuous landslide areas, you can observe if they are active cracks in the walls. In this case, the crack has been restored or covered by concrete, but after a while, the crack opened. You see the continuous process, the activity of this landslide process. Just to give you a short insight about continuous landslide, and I would like to switch to the characteristics of shallow landslide debris flows. the first example with the railway line I showed you before. Normally, the depth of the moving mass is lower than 5 meters with a high velocity, 30-40 meter per kilometer per hour. So a spontaneous process, and often the mass is less than 1,000 meter cube. Can be quite higher, but often there is not that much meter cubes moving down to the valley. And this shallow landslide debris flows has the characteristic that you have a cracking area, you have transition area, and you have a deposition area for this kind of landslide. How do they occur? In this virtual cross section, you have a rock underground, and on the top, limestone, for example. On the top you have loose material, a colluvium, and if it rains, this part of the subsoil will be moved, and can a shallow landslide can occur. But it's not just the precipitation triggering the shallow landslide debris flow. It's a combination of factors which that will trigger the landslide. It's, well, as I mentioned, sure, the precipitation, but also the exfiltration of groundwater. Maybe a week before it rained in the same area, water has been infiltrated to the underground and would like to exfiltrate. But if the colluvium here is compacted, Donny, sagt man dem so? Zusammendrückt.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Compacted, or even a clayey colluvium, it's not possible the water to exfiltrate. So it will create a certain kind of pressure that triggers the landslide. We know that it is not possible to have spontaneous shallow landslide debris flows in areas in slopes less than 20 degrees. It has to be higher, but it depends on the type of colluvium, on the land use type. If it's the critical slope angle is 20, 22, or even 30 degrees, but lower than 20 degree, it will be quite difficult to become a landslide debris flow. Forests can help to avoid shallow landslide debris flows, but only if the roots are able to reach the rock under the colluvium. If not, the forest doesn't guarantee you to have a stable slope. It also has to be considered. Okay, that doesn't work exactly. You have to consider a distance of about 100 meters. That's a more or less information. Downside of the slope to be the deposition area for shallow landslide debris flows. So don't consider just the slope angle, the area with slope angles higher than the critical slope, but also an area 100 meters beyond these sectors. To show you that forest doesn't guarantee you the protection against shallow landslide debris flows, as this example shows here. You have a dense forest, but nevertheless, a landslide debris flow occurred. A dense forest can help to increase the critical slope up to 5 degrees. That means if you have a critical slope of 22 degrees with a dense forest, the critical slope will increase to 27. So this is empirical empirical knowledge we apply for hazard assessment for landslide debris flows. But how do we define this critical slope, which is quite different depending on the lithology, depending on the geology in your area? For the hazard assessment are the same 3 steps we use for floods. We have the first step, which is the event cadastre, asking local farmer about earlier events. They mark the events in a map, screened on a wall, for example, as we see here in this picture. The second aspect is we will make the transit walk. We are looking for silent witnesses. I have the same picture here in a little bit closer. We see here a steep area in the river downside. You can't see it, but it's more or less here. You have an area where earlier landslide debris flow already occurred. You have a crack zone here, which is quite clear that this area is quite a hazardous area for landslide debris flows. So these are typical silent witnesses we can find in terrain. And as a third aspect is the technical approach. In terrain, you are looking for earlier events and measuring the slope angle in the crack zone of this landslide debris flows. And if you have statistics, if you have found in your area 20, 30, 40, 50 earlier events where you measured the slope angle, you can create your statistic in Excel or in any kind of another application. And that works in the way that it's written in Spanish. Sorry for that. You have on the x-axis you have the slope angle, and in that way you have the counts of events which occurred in the last decades. We have down, this example is made in Haiti. We have made a difference between volcanic geology and limestone area. So the critical slope angle is different for these geological underground type. For example, we found 2 events with a slope angle of 26 degrees, 2 with 28, 10 with a slope angle of 32, etc., etc. So when we have a huge number of documented events, I can define the critical angle. That means if the slope angle is less than 26 degrees, I assume that landslide debris flows cannot occur. For the other geology, I couldn't find any landslide events with slope angles less than 32. So this helps you to define the critical slope angle. The more events you found, the more reliable your definition of critical slope angle. So it doesn't help you if you just find 5 or 6. You should find many of silent witnesses of earlier events. It can be outside of your project area. It doesn't matter if the conditions, climatic conditions, geologic conditions are the same. You can use this area as well for the definition of critical slope angles. And so after these 3 working steps, that's what I wanted to show you, to measure with a inclinometer, a tool to measure the slope angle. You are looking in your area for these earlier events, and you are considering the slope angle of each of this earlier event. Yes, this is the work step with this instrument for measuring the slope angle. You can buy this kind of tool, or you can just download an application for your app, which is free, a little bit less precise, but it works as well. And then go to your statistic for the definition of critical slope. Afterwards, maybe I use this slide here. If you have the possibility to create a slope map of your project area, that means you need to have a digital terrain model made by Andrea or made by a drone with just a few clicks in GIS. You can create your map with indicating different slope angles, and you are looking for all the areas where the slope angle is higher as your critical slope angle. You are consider these areas as prone for landslide debris flows. And for all these areas, in this example here, my critical slope angle was 20 degrees. I also marked slopes with higher slope angle, but it doesn't matter. All the colored areas are prone for landslide debris flows. And for each polygon, for each area, and valley side, I added 100 meters for the deposition area, and that was and so I could define the hazard-prone areas for landslide debris flows. So to repeat, all the colored areas are the possible crack zone, and adding the 100-meter valley side, we have the hazard-prone areas. Do you have any questions before I will go ahead for the definition of frequency and intensity of landslide hazards?
Not a question, Georg, but can we take 5-minute break?
You are right. Now. Yeah, thank you for the observation. Let's do a 5-minute break. With this approach I presented you before going to have the break, we were able to define the hazard-prone area, but we don't have any information about frequencies and intensities.
Georg, I have a question here.
Yes.
You said, I mean, we can have a sort of, this type of map from digital terrain model, right?
Yes.
Can we have similar map also from the digital elevation model?
The digital elevation model is your basic data to create your slope map. Was that your question?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Can we create a slope map from digital elevation model?
Yes,
that was
very
my question.
easy. Very easy.
Because I have never worked on a digital terrain model, but worked on digital elevation model.
Which kind of GIS are you using?
I normally use QGIS.
Yeah, it's easy to create.
Okay, thank you.
for that we have to look for a specific time slot to apply it, or even Andrea, you could also help. You know QGIS. I'm not very familiar with QGIS, more with ArcMap. But maybe after this presentation, you could stand in line and Andrea, I don't know, you could show it. Do you think that would be possible, Andrea? To give an example.
Yes, maybe not with data. For that, I have to look, but I can show you where the tool is. I just created a screenshot of it as well, so it's
okay.
easy.
So we can
okay.
you could present it afterwards, Andrea.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. We have 2 working steps left. We have to define the return periods of these hazard-prone areas for landslide debris flows. And this is a flow chart you could apply, which looks difficult, but in fact it is not. Starting with the question, the area that would like to define the return period of future events, is your slope beyond or above the critical slope angle? So is the critical slope angle exceeded or not? For example, 32 degrees is your critical slope angle. If you say no, the area that I'm observing is flatter, you have to check if events have been reported. If yes, something is wrong. But you shouldn't find reported events in area which are flatter than your critical slope angle. So you have to do a re-evaluation to recheck your statistics maybe, or something was wrong. If you are flatter than your critical slope angle, you don't have any kind of reported events. So this is not a hazard-prone area. If your critical slope angle has been exceeded, so in your slope map, your slope is colored in this area, and if you have reported events in the vicinity of this area, you have to check if you have trigger factors. We have 2 kinds of trigger factors I would like to show you. If you have trigger factors type 1, so you will have quite often landslide debris flows in this area. Very, very often. If you have several trigger factors of the second trigger factor type, you have it has been to be expected landslides with a return period between 10 and 30 years. If you are in an area where the critical slope angle is exceeded, but you don't have any kind of reported events, but you can find trigger factors of the second class, it is possible that landslide debris flows could occur, but not really, only during extreme events. So this is the classification, or the flow chart for the definition of return periods. So what kind of trigger factors do we have? There are more than the one I listed here, but I think I got the most common, the most important. This as a trigger factor, first class trigger factor, you have artificial slope cutting. When you are constructing, for example, a road along a hill slope. In thawing permafrost, so in quite high areas where temperature the whole year in the underground are below 0 degrees, but you have thawing permafrost due to climate change, for example. Or if you have large and steep artificial stockpiles. So in that case, the landslides is a kind of artificial triggered landslides. These 2 trigger factors are not really often found in project areas, but they exist.
Just a question. What are large and steep artificial stockpiles?
I say that in German, Tony, and please translate it afterwards. Künstliche Schüttungen. Also wenn ein Lastwagen zum Beispiel eine Böschung ab immer wieder Material schüttet und dann tut es das aufkumulieren. Thank for the translation, Tony.
Yeah, I don't know if it's stockpiles. Probably, I don't know. Do you understand the ones who don't speak German? You know, is it okay for you what artificial stockpiles are?
Yeah, I can understand.
Okay, good.
Artificial accumulation of loose materials in a slope.
Humans throwing a lot of stuff somewhere, and then there is a risk of it not being secured. It's often a problem on the mine sites as well, because the excavating material is being put into, well, it has to be carried away, and wherever they pile it up over time, that is a very dangerous area, and it's very risky to walk on it or go anywhere close.
But you know, just garbage dumps, that would not be where you just put, you know, your plastic stuff, etc. That's not such a stockpile. No, you need to be sediment. A bit more robust material.
Yeah, soil material.
Soil, sediment.
Yeah. Okay, the second class of trigger factors are quite often found in terrain. Slope cuts due to road construction, but not in throwing permafrost, but in general. Or for example, you have a concentrated infiltration of water running along a road, for example, and in a curve, the water is infiltrating in a concentrated way to the slope, and so it's a huge accumulation of water in a soil body, and then it can trigger the landslide. If you're underground, your source rock is marl or a clay rock, so you will have also a clay soil type. So exfiltration of underground water flows will be won't be possible. So you will have this water pressure I mentioned before in an earlier slides that can trigger landslide. And the existing cracks we saw in an earlier slide. Or you have during the whole year, you have wet areas in steep slopes. So it's also a trigger factor. The soil compactation by cows, for example, is also a trigger factor. Or you have steep slopes within a permanent landslide area. There are also other trigger factors, but as I mentioned before, maybe the most important are listed in this slide here. Just to repeat, if you have you are within a very steep slope, you have reported events near your area, and you have found several trigger factors of the second class with a return period of 10 up to 30 years. Events are expected to occur. Yeah, just took a photo from the area where we will go during our field trip in September. This is an access road, not paved access road, and you have the valley is on the left side, the top of the hill on the right side. You have here compactation of soil by goats, and you have a documented landslide debris flow in that area. You have also here an old one, a landslide debris flow, but it's almost not visible, but it is an earlier event. So the whole area here, which presents the same slope angle, the same land use type, the same climatic conditions. So it's not just this area where the event occurred, but the whole area here has the same hazard, the probability to become a landslide debris flow. What we are still missing is the definition of intensity of those processes. This is, to explain, it's easy. To define it in terrain is a little bit more difficult, but it's normally it is possible. It depends on the depth of your underground, the thickness of the underground. If the thickness of the underground is less than 50 centimeters, we are considering the intensity as low. As you see in the left side of this picture, a very shallow landslide occurred, this very low material sliding down. If it is between 50 centimeters up to 2 meters, you see you have the same classes as we had for floods. It is a medium intensity, and what is higher than 2 meters, the possibility to sliding material with a thickness higher than 2 meters are considered as high intensity. So we come back to our 9-field diagram, which you know very well already. Combining the intensity concerning the thickness of the loose material and the flow chart with the frequency, you can define the hazard degree or the hazard level of your landslide debris flow prone area. Here on the right side, you see a hazard map for landslide debris flows in a project area from the Swiss Red Cross. The 9-field diagram shows a little bit different compared with the one we used for floods. For example, the field 4 and the field 2 were yellow in the 9-field diagram for floods, and the cell 6 was blue. In the case of landslides, it changed a little bit the colors. It's the only difference. The rest of the 9-field diagram remains the same as we use it for floods. I think with this slide, I finished this short overview of hazard analysis for landslide debris flows. We have still almost 30 minutes left for questions regarding landslides, but also regarding satellite data, drone data, or even floods. And I think we'll open the floor for questions. Or Tony, if you have some additional information, just go ahead.
Georg, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
For low intensity landslides, normally we do not see the how you call it some symptoms in the field. So how do you identify the symptoms of the low intensity landslide so that it leads to the hazard mapping? For the deep landslides, there are cracks, there are these bent roots, bent trees, or the elongated roots, or some traces of old landslide. Those are available. But for the low intensity landslide, they happen spontaneously. You normally don't see the symptoms that there will be landslide sometime soon. So how do you identify those?
Yeah, landslide debris flows always are spontaneous processes. So it starts immediately from 1 second to the other and it flows down. So it's a spontaneous process always, per definition. But silent witnesses, you can find silent witnesses for independently of the thickness of the loose material. They are the same silent witnesses for low intensity as for high intensity. It doesn't matter. For example, I'll give you an example here. This will be low intensity because the material you find here is rock stone, so stable material, and the loose material covering the rock are less than 50 centimeters. So it's low intensity, but you can see clearly the cracks. So this is a silent witness. For example, here, this cracks, it seems to be the thickness is higher than 50 centimeters. I'm not sure in this photo, but it can be. So it doesn't matter. The silent witnesses are the same. What you have to define in terrain or by earlier studies or whatever your information you can obtain is the thickness to reach the rock subsurface. So what's the thickness of the loose material of the material which can slide down? You have to define it in terrain or by information of farmers or earlier studies. It's in some cases a bit difficult to know the thickness of the subsurface of the underground.
This means that, you know, if
so Donny? Hello?
Yes, I think I have to. You don't hear me well now. I have a power cut or so, and now do you hear me?
Yes, now yes. I don't know the other.
But difficult. Yeah. Okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'll try to get back.
Niraj, was that clear for you, the answer? Donny?
Georg, I was saying, yes, but at the same time, I realized that it is more difficult to develop the landslide hazard map than the flood hazard map.
Why do you think so? Or which part of the analysis it looks for you
mathematically, I mean, probably it's easier, mathematically, but locating all those salient features in the slope, I mean, it's rather, from that practical perspective, it seems to be difficult.
Okay, from my point of view, the most difficult aspect is definition of the intensity. In some areas where you have a mix of rock areas on the surface, and in some areas just a few soil cover, it's easy to see that it's less than 50 centimeters. But in some cases, to know if it is medium intensity or high intensity can be difficult. The other aspect, the measuring with your instrument, with your cellular phone, the slope angle, I think it's not that difficult to create your statistic, maybe neither. and to look for silent witnesses, it needs to have some training. Or which kind of working steps for you was the most critical? You see, in practical it's more difficult, but which kind of this working step?
I mean, I'm still not very, clear in terms of identifying the silent witness.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, let's say we are working on a hill slope, which is something around half a kilometer in length and maybe a kilometer along the valley. Then covering all that area. I mean, that's a huge area.
Yes.
So I mean, you don't know where which mass, which part of the slope falls. So you have to have the understanding of the whole slope in terms of identifying the salient features. So that seems to be very tricky to me.
Yes, you're right. If you don't have the help by GIS, it needs a lot of field work. There's the possibility to just map the hazards above infrastructure or above houses to limit your area where you would like to map the hazards, to reduce your field work, which you're right. If you have area would like to cover with your hazard map the whole area, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe you remember in an earlier learning journey, I wanted to access the from Swiss Re the CatNet data, where you can ask to have by Swiss Re to have access, to have a license. They can provide you access to hazard maps for the whole world, but the precision is quite low. It's really low, because Swiss Re doesn't work for small areas. They are interested in huge areas, countrywide information. So the precision of this information is very low, but it can give you, as a first step, it can give you some information. But to reach the level of a really hazard map, this is the recommendation to go in terrain. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Jörg.
Are there other questions or regarding the presentation given by Andrea?
Yes, Georg, I would have one question. Hello, this is Jana. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned to have an app with which to measure slope inclination. I joined a bit later. Maybe I missed which one you would recommend.
There are many. I can just show you the one I'm using. Just a second. I'm not sure if you can see it on my cell phone. Impossible.
No.
What would be possible? You could make a screenshot of the symbol and the name, and then we can download it if it's possible.
Clinometer.
Clinometer. Yeah, okay. And
Clinometer with starting with C. Clinometer. But there are many. Yeah. You have just to check the one that is more comfortable for you. The one I use is Clinometer. I just write it down. I have an iPhone. I don't know if it's accessible also for other systems.
But that might be something to also look at during the field day, to have a look at how to, I mean, how do we do this? How can we work on it? And maybe also an understanding question. So when you go back maybe to the slide of the hazard levels, exactly that one, and for the frequency. So you identify the critical slope. And you mentioned before that you can do it via statistics. If you have a couple, I mean, a certain number of events that you have recorded, but if you do not yet have it, how are you getting to that critical slope? Are you like in winter in the mountains, you say above 30 degrees, it's critical, below 30 degrees, not so much? Or, I mean, are there any like rough indications what are critical slope levels?
To be on the safe side, you can define 20 degrees as the critical slope angle. But it's quite difficult to become a landslide debris flow with a slope lower than 20 degrees. Or for example, in Haiti, in a limestone area, we define this with 32 degrees. So if you have more precision about your critical slope angle, can you reduce your areas to visit during the field trip? Can be reduced. You can, it can be reduced, the amount of hours you spend in terrain. But to be on the safe side, yes, 20 degrees.
Okay.
And then you would say, okay, 20 degrees, and if it's forested with let's say with trees where you know that they have deep roots, you would add like 5 degrees. And when you know the geology, and you know, okay, it's limestone, it's definitely not clay, etc., there you could also add a little bit, and you're still on the safe side. Would you do it like this?
Yeah,
A bit,
that's correct. But the forest has to be a very a healthy forest. If you have just some trees and it's not really a dense forest, you cannot count with the benefit of the forest. It has to be really a healthy forest.
If I'd have another question to Andrea. And that's related to the databases for using satellite imagery. Maybe that goes beyond hazard data or data using for hazard assessments, but I saw you put together a couple of documents and links, for example, Forest Watch, which I find super interesting, but as I could see it, the resolution was rather coarse. So it's country-wise data. So if we'd want to have a closer look at the subnational level and on a forest cover and forest cover change, land use change in general, are there databases, or do you really, I mean, is this too detailed for open access databases? And there you have to analyze, take the imagery and analyze by yourself, like in a timeline. I think you're muted.
Which country would you be interested in? Because probably, so most of the services that one can just access like that would provide worldwide data and then either offer higher resolution for pay, or then the country itself has a GIS or a database available you could access. We have that in Switzerland. Of course, that's not expected everywhere to exist, but it's totally possible that you may be able to just ask that local government if they can give you access to some of the data. Not every government has it sort of publicly available via a web server, but usually they have something in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Georg, I would have a question, a bit of an overall question that has been put in the Q&A doc, if it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
If nobody else has. And that's a bit, this, and we also noted for some participants, it was a bit technical, maybe not even for themselves, but for their contexts, where they say, in my project context, probably I cannot use that, or it's difficult to use. So the question goes a bit to that, to this overall judgment. I just read it out loud here. I would like to know in what contexts and/or project volume. Maybe it's also a matter of how big the project is, as per your experience. Is it recommended to conduct such an in-depth risk assessment? What are the pros and cons? What is the added value of a technical assessment over a participatory one? Just that this, what we know, you call it the event catastrophe. For us, we call it the VCA, the Vulnerability and Capacity Assessment with the communities. And a bit on that, and what are the needed resources, actually? How much does it take in terms of time and financial? A bit, this overview and judgment. When does it really make sense to go into a more in-depth assessment, and when is it fine to go for a lighter one? It's the same as I put, there as well, but a bit more comprehensive.
I presented, it was the last learning journey, the example of Honduras, where we had a project area of up to 5,000 kilometers square, which is huge, Huascoran project, where we mixed the degree of detail of analysis. First, we started with a hazard indication map. That means we used as well for floods and landslides the data from Swiss Re. And we combine it with information of local persons like VCA. So we combined these two data sources. We made it for the whole area. Then we checked the results. We know with this database is from CatNet Swiss Re, we know it's a very pessimistic presentation, but it's very fast. I just need to ask for access, and it's done in 2-3 hours. The map is done. And then we crossed this area with the exposed objects. That means infrastructure line and villages, cities, and defined areas which are affected by the hazard indication map by Swiss Re data and some information of the authorities and local people. And then we reduced the area where we made a much more detailed analysis in the detail degree we discussed during the learning journey. And it was less than 5% of the whole area, where we made a detailed hazard assessment for these two process type, landslides and floods. In the project of Huascoran, it took a lot of time. Even the area was reduced to 5% of the whole area. We had almost 1 year for the whole assessment, but it's not the reason because it was that.
You shouldn't have said that.
No. I say it because it's true. The reason was that this company didn't know the methodology, so we need to make training courses, 3 training courses where I went to Honduras. We made trainings, we went out to terrain, etc., etc. So that was the reason why it took that much time. If you have an experienced person, it takes maybe 1 month to do for this area. It was still a huge area. 5% of 5,000 kilometers square is still a big area. If we take, for example, a village of 300 person, to say to give you an answer. Oh no, I give you the example. I give you the example from. Give me a second, Tony. Let's go to this example here. Can you still see my screen?
No, I unshared it because we saw ourselves double. Then I thought so. You have to share it again.
Yeah. We made also in Honduras a hazard map for a village with about 100 people, 150 people, and that took us 2 days to do that. So we have done that together with the local persons. We made the event cadastre that took us 1 hour, 1 and a half. We made then the round trip, the transect walk that took us half a day. And then we made the technical analysis for this river with 2 affluents, small river entering to this village, and that took us, how much was that? Where I helped maybe 2-3 weeks, but not 100% working on that, but working 100% just on this hazard map. 2-3 days maybe. So it's difficult to give you an exact information, Tony. It depends on the knowledge the people has. To make it short, for a village of 200-300 person, it take in total maybe less than 1 week, 4 or 5 days maybe. That's the reason I recommend to split it in areas where you don't have that much interest. You go on a lower level. Maybe it's enough to make the VCA methodology, and where you have damage potential, you go more to detail.
So that would mean also, as a recommendation, before you go into such an assessment, get a good overview of the areas that are like priority areas. Where is there something that can be destroyed, and to save resources, not go big, but go like prioritized to these areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense, but just wanted to emphasize that this initial, let's say, an initial screening or an initial mapping is useful before you go in depth.
Exactly. So to repeat and make it short, 200-300 person per village, 1-2 hours asking people in a meeting, half a day the transect walk, and 2-3 days for the technical approach, and then it's done.
Okay.
In Huascoran, we had 20 municipalities, 17 municipalities. Each municipality had a couple of villages, so that was another size level of analysis.
Okay, thanks a lot. I don't see any other question from the Google Doc, and it's 3 o'clock. How does it look like?
It was Niraj, I think, asking for the QGIS working steps for the slope angle map. Was that right?
Yeah.
I created a little document that explains it. I suggest we can share that.
That would be great. That would be enough, I guess.
Would you like to share it now, Andrea, or just to share it digitally?
I can share it now, but it didn't let me put it in the chat. Maybe I'm too stupid, but
No, but
I don't think so.
Andrea, but if you share it digitally, that would be enough, I guess.
Yes, it's pretty simple. It's under the raster tools.
You don't have to demonstrate. You just share that document with me.
Okay, I put in a couple screenshots and the links to the resources of QGIS where the parameters are explained of the tool.
That would be great. Thank you.
And otherwise, you can always contact me and ask you if you're stuck.
Sure.
Okay, and you'll send it, if you don't put it in the chat, you just send it to me and I make it available, huh?
Yeah, well, I saved it as a PDF. It just doesn't let me send it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you normally manage to save PDFs to send PDFs via this chat here?
I don't know. I usually use it for links and not for documents.
Exactly.
I don't know how it works with documents.
No, it wouldn't let me.
But you know, we can share it with the participants just afterwards. That's also fine. You know.
Yeah.
I have it ready. I can send it to you right now, Tony, and then.
Okay, good.
Great, thank you.
So, any more questions? I know Theo, he left us as well, you know, because he had another meeting. It's like, I don't know if you know this this song. No, I cannot say it in English.
Yeah.
You know, 10 little people, and then you know something happens, and then there were 9, and something happens, there were 8, etc. It's from a very long time ago, and nowadays it's not adequate anymore to use it, but it felt a bit like that, you know, when I looked over the 6 modules we had. Of course, at the introduction, we had the most, and today we are a few that are left. But nevertheless, I think I had a preparation yesterday with Georg, and I told him, still, you know, if you do it qualitative and not very technical, still, you know, this landslide, this debris flow, landslide debris flow is still very technical to the non-technical persons. It seemed to me, you know, so I need to go back and have a look. You know, every small part is clear, but you know, to have the whole process in mind is quite difficult. But you don't need to have that in mind, because all what you said, Georg, you can also access on the internet. There are the guidelines for those 2 processes, and you find them indirectly via website of the platform. When you go to the training, to the training documentation, then you will find it there, and we will make it available in another way, in a more direct way, but we are not there yet, but we will do that. So we came to an end of this first part of the learning journey on hazard assessment. Thanks a lot to both of you, Andrea and Georg. It was very insightful, very rich, digestible, I have to say. It's digestible, really. And it's good that we have recorded it, and we can make use. You know, others can go and have a look and make use of it. Part of it we will we will do that for the field day. At least module 1 will be required, you know, or strongly requested for all those who are joining us at the field day who have not been in this webinar. Thanks to Niraj. Thanks to, who else do we still have? who are here. Yeah, it's just Niraj. Okay, from the non-Swiss. So, and you've been here every time. So thanks a lot, Niraj. I know Mosley was there as well. Ghana, he was today as well. Theo was here. So we had a couple of core followers. So that was great. Thanks a lot, Niraj, and also for your inputs and feedbacks.
It was entirely my privilege to be part of this training.
Good. So what we will do next in the next couple of months, I have to say, is just a review, a more a broader overview and the feedback on this first part that will inform us on the second part a bit. Then, you know, give us a bit more information to prepare for the second part. And I think that's it from my side. And the one person who has not, you know, whose camera is off, I wanted also to thank a lot, because that's the person who is usually behind it, but makes it all happen as well, with logistics, with assistance, etc. So Nora, I don't know if you're still following us. I think so, because we come to the end. Yeah, great. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Nora, also for your help. So that's it. I think we'll leave it at that. I don't know if Andrea and Georg, if you want to say something.
Good from my side. Thanks for joining in any case, and it was very interesting to hear your feedback and your questions.
I agree totally what you said, Andrea. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon in the during the field day or in another moment.
Occasion. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thanks a lot.
Salut zusammen.
Bye-bye. Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all. See you
Have a
next
good
year.
evening, Niraj. Okay. Bye-bye.
See you next year.